As of right now, we're in the second week of the federal government shutdown, and Democrats are still playing hardball. The question we want to dig in tonight is, should they? Of course, there's nothing new about shutdowns, but this one comes with the president's threat of permanent cuts to federal programs and possibly not giving back pay to furloughed employees. There's a lot at stake, more than usual. So, Jenny, is Democrats' fight to save healthcare subsidies for 24 million Americans worth it?
Right, it's a great question, and there is a lot to unpack in what you just articulated because there are many dimensions to this. I think for Democrats, the stance that they're taking is that healthcare is on the line again. The public trusts Democrats on healthcare more than they do Republicans. And that particular issue has been one that Democrats have been quite successful with in the past in persuading the public that they are in the right. 24 million Americans who are affected by a rollback in extensions of the Affordable Care Act subsidies that occurred during COVID. There's real pain there potentially when even Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican, comes out and says, actually, I am breaking with my party, the Republican Party, to support an extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies to support Americans because otherwise they face doubling of premiums or losing their coverage altogether.
Right. I mean, one can sort of understand her stance given the fact that enrollment in Obamacare went out mostly in red states. So
Correct.
What do you make of Republicans' stance on this?
Right. Well, so, the Republican stance is that they are pushing a clean continuing resolution. So in the past, when you have these shutdowns, usually what the fight is over is let us just continue the spending rate on, in this case, 2024 levels and not deal with policy matters. That needs to happen through the typical legislation process. And so the Republicans are claiming a high road here and saying we're just going to extend and we will engage this debate about policy after the extension.
Right. But Lisa, Democrats argue that waiting until after the extension will be too late because of the enrollment deadline. What are your thoughts?
Right, that's the point, because enrollment begins in some states in November. And so you're correct about that. My thoughts on this are, the other thing Republicans are pushing is that these subsidies, 24 million people, 92% of them get these subsidies. To me, that's fairly clear evidence that the Affordable Care Act isn't affordable. And so the Republicans are saying there's a significant need to reform this, and these cannot be just extended in their current form, indefinitely. The Democrats are pushing for a permanent extension. And so, I think there's no, so a couple things about this. There's no income maximum on these subsidies, although they are limited to the extent that your market premium exceeds 8.5% of your household income. So there is, a limit. The other thing that's going on here, of course, is that the Republicans and Democrats, neither one is being exactly precise about the extent to which, depending on your definition of undocumented migrants, are eligible for them, right? So the Republicans are pushing hard on the notion that, illegal or undocumented persons present in the United States are eligible for these. The reality is that those who are lawfully present are eligible. And what that means, but that does include people who entered the country illegally, even if they now have been granted asylum or temporary protected status. So there's games being played around that aspect of this too.
Yeah, Lisa, and specifically in regard to the emergency Medicaid program, it doesn't matter what one's status is. And so Republicans are sort of hanging their hat on that. And so, but if you think about the fact that folks go in for all sorts of reasons that have not only to do with the individual's health care, but the safety of the communities that they live in. So isn't there a health care argument for the community as a whole to be made here for everybody to have some sort of coverage?
Well, absolutely. I mean, for one thing, the loss of these two, the Medicaid money and the subsidies will impact hospitals, which everybody needs access to hospitals. But again, I'm somewhat sympathetic with the Republicans' view that when you have a program where 92% of the participants need to be subsidized, and without taking a look at how we got here and whether other reforms need to be made to the medical marketplace, I think that's a meritorious argument, I'm not arguing for, cutting off this benefit, but that's part of the Republican concern here is that there need to be reforms.
Yeah, so Anirban, do you think that Republicans, or I'm sorry, Democrats are succeeding in their messaging and dealing with the issue that Lisa just talked about?
So yeah, that's the crucial point here, right? Whether the Democrats would be able to land this particular issue with the voters, and that those voters would actually go out and vote for Democrats. One of the issues with American politics, and all politics, in fact, democratic politics, is that poor people who are actually receive the bigger brunt of these cuts generally don't vote. They don't have the ability, or they don't have the wish, or they don't have the, they just simply they don't vote. So as a result, I don't know whether voting-wise this would actually translate to Democrats. And an interesting poll that I saw yesterday is that the Times Siena poll that came out, that said only 1% of Democrats said healthcare was the most important issue facing the country. Now, given that poll, I'm not sure whether Democrats base voters are fine. They might be voting for Democrats, but whether people who are independent, who have not leans Republican, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and those people, are they going to come towards the Democrat side? I'm not very sure. But on the whole, I do think it's, morally speaking, it is a good fight. They are fighting for the preservation of healthcare, and I do agree with Lisa that a lot of that needs to be kind of reformed in certain ways.
Yeah.
But I am not very sure if it's going to translate for Democrats into votes.
So I think Schumer, when there was this budget fight in the spring, the core Democratic base was very frustrated that the message from the Democrats ultimately was, we're going to work with Republicans and pass Trump's political agenda. And Schumer's own public opinion approval ratings dropped. The Democrats have had this deficit of support since. And so I do see part of the fight that Democrats are pushing on right now is one to speak to their base and say, we will fight against this. And
to also show strength.
Correct.
Right? Because that was one of the things that came out of the polls.
It's literally the only power that the Democrats currently have, given that the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency.